this is Kevin Benedict, SMAC Analyst with Cognizant, and SMAC Sahara stands for what?
Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud.
Very good, you're hired. Thank you for doing that. I want to introduce again Sahara Alexis. She's the head of advisory services here at Cognizant Mobility. I have a question for you,
Sure.
Sahara. What is a mobility center of excellence? Is it a building? Is it a room? Is it a committee? Is it a data center? What is it?
It's a compilation of both IT and business stakeholders coming together to define what mobility means in their environment and working through the process so that they have a sustainable environment in which they can build things from inception all the way to deployment and retirement around mobile.
Okay, so if a company said, Sahara, help us build one of these,
Yes.
how would you start? What advice would you give them?
Well, depending on where they are in their level of maturity around mobile,
Okay.
you would have different starting points. Traditionally speaking, you would normally need to have a mobility strategy of some sort, which kind of defines your path, your roadmap of how you're going to move forward with mobile or mobility in your environment. The second area that becomes very influential in the mobility councils, I want to call it, because it is a living body, is governance. It's how do people govern mobility? It's everywhere. So you have security policies, you have testing, you have application development, you have third parties doing a lot of different activities. Then you have the business. How do you manage that? So governance is the next area of focus that companies concentrate on. And then you have the application development process itself. How do people get an application out? Never mind the certification and the app store if they're going to do external facing things or their internal enterprise app store. You also have the platforms and infrastructure piece, which is a significant area of focus that companies need to understand. Another area around that is mobility testing, right? With all the different devices that are out there and all the OS that are out there as well, it's hard to get that right combination of what you're supporting. So having a strong strategy around testing in your QA is important as well. One of the last areas that is just as important, but people kind of underestimate, is this idea of having a research and innovation branch of the council. And this is about having an opportunity to look at emerging technologies. What was relevant a year ago may be still relevant or even it's been leaped over by another technology in the marketplace. And how do you incorporate these emerging technologies into your existing landscape or your future landscape, for example? You have the onset of augmented reality and the devices that are there. Now you can embed video and augmented reality to do training, on-site training. If you have people out in the field, they can see in 3D dimensions their work in multi-layers. These are all very powerful tools, but if you're not keeping your eye on the ball in terms of emerging technology, you can miss out, even though you've already stepped into the environment of mobility.
So in a sentence, what would you say is the purpose of a center of excellence for mobility?
The purpose is to have a governing body that can encapsulate all elements of mobile. Your infrastructure, your governance, your strategy, your testing.
So is this an advisory group to the executives, or is it a tactical group that will actually deliver solutions?
It can be a combination of both, right?
Okay.
So you typically have someone who's heading up the mobility council. I would call it an evangelist.
Okay.
Who is the conduit between the executives and the corporation or enterprise. And then they have a steering committee or some body of individuals with discrete responsibilities that cover a variety of different areas within the organization, doing and executing policy, executing the delivery of new technology, executing how the application development process is going to work, making sure all the legal entities are done. So it's a combination of resources.
So what personnel might you find on there? Is it going to be the help desk is represented there? Is it going to be the IT procurement guys that manage device procurement? Who all would you envision in an average or a typical center of excellence? Who's going to be around the table?
So we can start from we'll say from the IT perspective. Yeah. You can have people who are responsible for the data, people who are responsible for integration, people responsible for the infrastructure. Okay. You have people who are responsible for the securing of the data, right? Those are some primary
Okay.
roles there. And you also have somebody who can be responsible for support and testing, right? Because that's key. And obviously the development area, which is paramount here. On the business side, you can have the UX design people, you have people from marketing. You obviously have the representatives from the business. And you can have people from legal, right? Because sometimes, depending on what kind of mobile application you're doing, can have some legal ramifications that are associated with it. And policymakers, right? You got to define what your policies are going to be around these different areas of focus.
Very good. Well, Sahara, I want to thank you so much for sharing
Sure.
with us today.
Thanks, Kevin.
And we'll come back in part 2 or 3.
Part
3, here we are, and talk about some predictions that you might have about the mobility marketplace.
Okay.